Coming alive. Now is the time. Don't try to hide, 'cause I'm gonna harm you like an animal.
If you're looking to buy an electric unicycle in Europe, head to myeWheel.com. They are a trusted dealer serving all of Europe with reasonable prices, 2-year warranties, and reliable after-sale service. Click the link below to get 5% off your myeWheel.com purchase when you use the promo code evX. So not all suspension is created equal. We've got everything from hydraulic suspension to air suspension to coil suspension, but today we are talking about the Kingsong S18 and the Inmotion V11 and how do they compare head to head. But in this video we're going to focus on mainly the suspension between the two unicycles. So the real question at the end of the day is, which is going to be better for you? The single shock or the dual shock suspension? So let's dive in.
Oh, here we go again, yeah.
So when it comes to suspension, you've got two options, linear and progressive. And in this video, we have the V11 and the S18. So we have the V11 being the linear suspension system and the S18 being the progressive system. So essentially, with the linear system, it just goes up and down with the hammer, the same pressure that you put in, PSI-wise, in correlation to how much pressure you're shoving down on it with your body weight or, whatever you're doing. But with the progressive system, you're gonna have a difference in travel. So at the top of the travel, you're gonna have different pressure, the middle of the travel is gonna have different pressure, and the bottom of the travel is gonna have different pressure. Arguably, when you get to the bottom, it's gonna have the highest pressure. So it's basically gonna give you sort of like a bell curve as far as how much pressure is being pushed back on you, which is gonna give you a more supple ride experience. Alright, so I've got a little crude test going on here, but I think it'll give us a good idea how these things handle on the same sort of bumps. So I've laid out some wood here that are different sizes, different lengths, just so that we can get a little varied idea of how this thing kind of handles on different kind of bumps. And we're going to run this test a few times with each of the wheels, and I'm going to try to shoot it in like slow motion so you can kind of see how my body reacts, and I'm going to try my best to keep it at an even pace, and I'm going to try my best to stay actually knees locked, which is really difficult, but I'm gonna try really hard. That way you can just sort of see for yourself like the differences between these two suspension systems. So my immediate thoughts on this test is, because of the nature of this wheel just being sort of like, I guess, typical, there's not a way for me to lock in and like keep my legs locked in with power pads or anything. I'm just using it like stock. I have a feeling in a moment when we do the S18, I'm not gonna have that fall over the front feeling when my legs are locked, because I'm gonna have the ability to sort of lock in with the way the side pads are built. I'm definitely guessing if you put some power pads on the side here, you could totally get rid of some of that, I'm about to fall off the front feeling. I mean, nobody really would ride with their legs locked. But anyways, let's go down to the S18. Well, lost the side pad on this one. Hopefully when the final production models come out, they are better adhered. I think they will be. Immediately I can tell you it takes the bumps better. It's not marginally better, but it's not a lot better. It's somewhere in between marginal and a lot. It's enough. It's enough better that it makes a difference, especially if you're looking for something that might help you if you were to hit an unexpected bump. Really quick note here on the S18 suspension. So obviously we can tell it's that giant single shock suspension, and really the big benefit to this system compared to the Inmotion system is you can swap that out. So if you don't like the stock one, or you wrecked yours somehow and it's out of warranty, you can swap that out. But the other thing is you have a lot more to dial in here. So I'm gonna throw up some visuals here, but basically you have a knob or a switch here that you can lock out the suspension. There is still a bit of travel, but that's pretty useful if you're climbing up a hill. Also, you're gonna have the ability to change the rebound knob. What that's gonna do is change how fast your suspension rebounds when you're hitting the bumps on whatever terrain you're on. That to me is actually the most helpful out of those things. That's gonna be so useful if you're on like super bumpy like asphalt, or like a bunch of little moguls or something. It's really gonna slow it down so you don't have that chattering teeth feeling. And then obviously the final thing, which is the negative air chamber down below. Basically that's what's gonna allow you to add the extra pressure. So when you crank down to that hammer, it's gonna be even more pressure the more you go down, like 700 PSI or something wild like that, so that it's a more supple ride experience. And to me, those few things are what really separate the S18's potential for having the most supple ride when it comes to larger and more rockier terrain. Whereas something like the V11 doesn't really have any options of tuning it. You basically just put it to the correct PSI and that's all you're getting. But the V11 does seem to do a lot better on just a regular street compared to off-road. Okay, the other big thing for me about these wheels is the motor power. So obviously with something as aggressive as this, you're going to want to make sure that the motor kind of stands up to what you put it through. And with the S18, we have a typical motor. It's a 2200 watt hour motor. And with the V11, we have a custom 2200 watt hour motor. So let's see if there's any differences with the motor that you can buy from a typical motor manufacturer, like they all usually do, or with the custom built motor by Inmotion. I mean, it's just amazing. I'm already going 30 miles an hour. If we're honest, this is one of the reasons why the V11 is a better motor. The stopping power on this is just typical for an 18-inch Kingsong. So there's a lot to be desired as far as when you're at top speed, how easy can you stop, or how quickly can you stop. The V11 feels like it's got an equal and opposite power out and power in. So when you are going 30 miles an hour and you're like, oh crap, I gotta stop so fast, it can do it, and you don't feel like it's struggling. I don't know if the audio came through, but just now on this end, when I was stopping just there, it felt like at the very end it was struggling. Like if I just give it a nice little crank more, that would be the end of that motor. You know, I could try it again and see if I can capture it better for you. So hopefully you can hear that. That's the motor kind of struggling really hard to do its job. Something that I've experienced with many unicycles, but you know, hoping, well, I guess I'm just spoiled by the V11 slightly, that this is a little disappointing to me.
Gotta strike this chord with the humble hearts. I'm bearing heavy chains and blue collar scars. Inevitably they're gonna get their way. If it don't take that fight, take it to the grave.
So pitting these two wheels against each other in the battery realm, we see that the S18 has 1100 watt hour battery and the V11 has 1500 watt hour battery. Now some people might not know what that means real world, but that's directly going to affect your range and sometimes even top speed. So for the S18 I was getting about 20 to 30 miles range, and for the V11 I was getting about 40 to 50. And that's a huge difference. So if range is something you think you're going to need, I would definitely consider this when you're looking at these wheels. Also, the S18 is only doing the typical Kingsong 50 kilometers an hour, roughly 31 miles per hour, and the V11 is doing a little bit more, so they're doing 55 kilometers an hour, which is about 34-ish miles per hour. So there's the difference there.
It's a heavy cause. Yeah.
Something interesting I noticed about this wheel is small little detail, but like when your front light is on at nighttime, the front light also protrudes back, you can see here, and sort of inevitably lights up this chamber in here. So you have the red on top, but then you have like this, you know, white light that's sort of underneath here, uplighting it. It's kind of cool. It's not no one really would really notice except for like you, but I mean, like, I don't know, it's a thing. All right, so back at the drawing board once again. So hopefully so far you've seen everything and you have a clear understanding of what the differences are between these two electric unicycles and the two different shock types or suspension types. So back to our original question. Is the single shock or the dual shock the best scenario for an electric unicycle? So I have kind of a nuanced view on this. If you were setting out to build a wheel that's completely and utterly focused on the suspension system, you would get the Kingsong S18. Now if you were setting out to create an amazing wheel that also has suspension in addition to it, just like a little piece of that puzzle, you'd probably get the Inmotion V11. In the future, when other companies want to adopt a suspension system, I think they'll have a lot better time adopting the Inmotion model as opposed to the Kingsong model. Because with this, you don't have to sacrifice, well, not as much at least, battery, range, speed. Because it's something sort of side, you can just keep the innards the way they were, you can keep the battery where they were, you can cram as much in as usual, and then just have these here. Obviously, this is adding a lot more weight, so you're going to have a heavier wheel. But with that aside, I think that this is going to be a more adopted model going forward with other companies, and even these companies too. So you have the BMW of electric unicycles, and you have the Ford F-150 of electric unicycles. You got to decide for yourself, which camp do you sit in? But anyways, go ahead and like if you enjoyed the content. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. You want to see more of my normal stuff, whatever you want to see out of me, subscribe down below. We'll make it happen. I think that's all I have for you today, so keep riding.